recognised as human. Right, would everybody like to sit down, please? Wherever you want. Members can sit wherever they wish. There's plenty of room over here. Oh. I'm now
Lord
coming
Mayor.
up as Cliff Woodcraft.
Are there any agenda papers, please?
Sorry?
Any agenda papers, please?
I believe they were all emailed out to everybody. Does nobody have any agenda papers?
No.
Jason, can I ask about this? Okay, I believe they have been distributed and some more spares are coming round. Apologies. I thought you all had some. Right. Hey? The gallery haven't... Hang on. The gallery is saying they haven't had agendas. Is that what you're saying? If there are any spare agendas, I will make sure that they are brought up to you. It has all gone out online, so if you do have a smartphone, you will be able to find it there. In the meantime, somebody will go and look for you. Right. Yeah, okay. Okay, can I just check that all members have got an agenda either on their laptop or on their smartphone or on paper? Right, so you haven't got one. Can people put their hand up, members, if they don't have an agenda? Right, let's have 2 minutes while we get some papers. Okay, and we'll sort out seating and we'll sort out everybody else. Okay. Announce the housekeeping arrangements.
Can I have your attention, please, while I make a few housekeeping announcements? Please can I request members of the public to familiarise themselves with the fire safety and evacuation notices displayed. In the event of the fire alarm sounding, please take instruction from the security attendants who will be in attendance throughout the meeting. Please can I request that everyone switch mobile devices to silent mode so as not to disturb the conduct of the meeting. We will be webcast and the recording will also be available for people to view later through the Council's website. It is also possible that Sheffield Live TV will record and rebroadcast this meeting. Photography, video and sound recording of the meeting is permitted, but the Lord Mayor does have discretion to withdraw or suspend this permission if the recording is disrupting the conduct of the meeting or is being undertaken in a manner which could capture personal information, or if a member of the public participating objects to being recorded. Any member of the public due to speak at the meeting who does not wish to be recorded should say so at the start of their speech, and the Lord Mayor will suspend the permission to record their contribution. For safety reasons, please may I request that recording equipment is not held over the balcony. Finally, although there are no longer any specific COVID safety measures to adhere to, individuals are very welcome to wear a face covering within the chamber. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Right. I also want to welcome our newly elected members. I'm just going to name you. Next week at full council, you get a full introduction, which is much more exciting. But I'd like to welcome Ian Horner and Robert Rice and Toby Mallinson, Laura Moynihan, Glynis Chapman, Ibiula, Laura McLean, Alison Norris, and welcome back to Councillor Mohammed Maroof. This meeting is scheduled to finish at 5:30, but I will adjourn the meeting at an appropriate point in the proceedings to have a comfort break, and also we will be adjourning later for our discussion points. So, item 2, apologies for absence. I have apologies from Mike Drabble, Diane Hurst, Denise Fox, Terry Fox, Peter Price, thank you, Maroof Raouf, Gary Wetherall, Paul Wood, Brian Lodge, Tony Dams, Karen McGowan, and Julie Growcutt. Are there any further apologies? Sorry, Fran.
No further apologies, Lord Mayor, but I did want to just point out that the reason we haven't put people up on the top table was because we haven't held our AGM yet, and we understood that all parties were in the same position. So just to explain that to members of the public.
Thank you, Fran. Come on, this is going to be quite a difficult meeting, we know that, and I do want people to be careful of other people. Sorry, hang on a minute. Sophie, have you found somewhere to sit? It is a bit. Sit when you have quite finished over there. I'm concerned for Sophie because she is pregnant and needs a seat that is easy for her to access leaving. Okay. Thank you, Sophie. Can I just say now, Shafak, that this is going to be a difficult meeting, and I expect you to be playing a sensible role as the leader of a group. Okay? I mean it. And I don't expect that from the gallery either. Right. Item 3, declarations of interest. Okay, we don't have any. Item 4 is to consider the implications of the street tree inquiry on the city, Sheffield City Council, and on councillors involved in the decision-making at that time. That is the request which came from the Green Party with that wording. So we've come together today to hold this extraordinary general meeting, and these meetings are genuinely extraordinary. We don't do them often at all. So I'd like to thank the Green Party for proposing this meeting so that we can have an open conversation about the Sheffield Street Tree Inquiry, which was led by Sir Mark Lowcock. The inquiry report makes clear that the council needs to make change, and it has done so over the years since 2018. To make change, we need to do things differently, and we're starting that process today. We're keeping the formality where appropriate, but we're also trying to make changes so we can have an open and honest discussion, and that we can do that unapologetically. I know that a lot of people have nervousness about today, myself included. I thank all of you for your generosity of spirit in attending today and embracing this new process. To further help everyone to feel comfortable, we have the services of Pete Tommond today, as an independent facilitator. He's helped us hugely with the design of this session and will be supporting all of us through the next few hours. He'll introduce himself after a few opening statements. So first, we're going to deal with a procedural matter, members. As regards this item of business, and in accordance with Council Procedure Rules 4 and 11, a motion is to be moved to suspend Council Procedure Rule 17.6, time limit for debate, to remove the 25-minute time limit for the item of business. I also want us to note that this meeting has asked members of the public to submit comments, questions, or statements relevant to the issues being discussed on the agenda, and that these will be responded to as part of this meeting. So, can I ask, is that motion moved? Thank you. And is that seconded?
Seconded, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Is that agreed by everybody?
Agreed.
Thank you. Right, let's all settle down a bit. Thank you for raising that with me. There will be a motion. I understand that the motion and the amendments are currently being looked at to make sure that they are legal, decent, truthful and honest, if you want. And those will be distributed to everybody once they are sorted. Okay. So we're now going to move to the main business of this item. First of all, we're going to receive a presentation from Sir Mark Lowcock regarding the Sheffield Street Trees Inquiry report. Sir Mark is attending via remote connection and will be visible on the big screen that we've brought in so that we can make sure that everybody in the gallery can see it as well. If you do have issues with not being able to hear or see it, please do give me a shout. Oh, and here it comes.
Sorry, yeah, I'm hearing from people outside that the volume isn't very good, and could you turn it up, please?
My volume, I think, is as high as it can go. What, you mean me speaking now?
I think it's the whole, the broadcast. People listening from outside here aren't able to hear very well.
Okay, I don't know why that is. If we can improve it, we will. It's not intentional at all. Hang on, can I just ask technicians, are we able to make the sound any louder? Okay, we have done everything we can to increase the volume, and it is loud as it can be. Okay? Obviously, if people are outside and they'd like to come in into the gallery, that would be more than welcome.
No, I believe it's people listening, to the broadcast, from elsewhere.
Okay. Okay, that's, as I say, that we have done as much as we can. Apologies. Right, can we now invite Sir Mark to the meeting? Can we welcome him and ask him to present his report to members? Thank you, Sir Mark.
Thank you very much indeed, Lord Mayor. Can I just check you can see and hear me? For what it's worth, I've been able to hear you very clearly so far.
You're coming over loud and clear, Sir Mark.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. And thanks for the opportunity to join you in the discussion today. I'm not going to repeat everything I said on the 6th of March when we published the inquiry report. The recording of what I said then is still available online, and I expect it'll be made available permanently through the Street Tree archive. In conducting the inquiry, my team and I worked hard to ensure that the overview chapter at the beginning of the report was brief and easy to understand without additional information or knowledge, and conveyed the depth and gravity of our findings and our recommendations. And I reread it again yesterday, and having done that, I am happy that we achieved that goal. I know that not all of you will have time to repeatedly study in detail the whole 227 pages of the report, though I know some of you have done that. But I would hope that everybody finds those first 10 pages to be material that you can read carefully and return to. And certainly the thrust of what we found and the thrust of what we recommend is set out as clearly as we could set it out there. The inquiry was a full external review. It took all the evidence available from everyone with an interest. And in line with the terms of reference, the council honoured the commitment that was given to me at the beginning of the process to give the inquiry access to all the information that I considered relevant. And just to remind you, we received more than 1 million documents. We held meetings with almost 160 people, and we conducted public hearings with lots of people, running to more than 32 hours of broadcast testimony from stakeholders across all perspectives. And I just want to, through you, Lord Mayor, if I may, just thank everybody, members, campaigners, the contractors, other interest groups, and especially the staff of the council. I want particularly to express my deep gratitude to the Chief Executive and other officers for their support for the inquiry, because we were obviously highly reliant on them to enable us to conduct our work thoroughly. And I also want to thank them in particular for their openness in considering our report. I know from my own experience, you know, I've served in high-profile public roles, and I know these are demanding roles. And I really appreciate the team that I really appreciate the commitment that the Chief Executive and her team have displayed through this process. And I want again to put that on record. As an experienced public servant, I also know that problems of the sort the inquiry uncovered do regrettably sometimes occur. And what matters is that when problems occur, it's important that public servants, whether they're elected or appointed, are serious about learning lessons and making improvements. So I followed carefully the public statements made by the leader of the council, the chief executive, all of the political parties, and by Amy and Stag in the weeks following the publication of my report. And what I observed was that the acceptance of the report and its recommendations by the chief executive and the leader of the council was both prompt and unequivocal. I think the fact that this meeting's happening today and that the leader commissioned the chief executive with others to bring a fuller plan for the implementation of the recommendations to a future meeting of the appropriate committee does give me some confidence in the council's commitment, in all of your commitment to learning lessons from what happened. And I have similarly seen nothing in any of the statements from any of the local power sharing political parties, all those of you in the room, that conveys anything that calls into question their acceptance of our conclusions and recommendations. I've also just in the last few days seen what I think is an important public statement, Amy, the contractor, put out, accepting and apologising for their role in adopting the flawed plan back in 2012, and in then not calling the pause in the tree replacement programme sooner than they did in March 2018. And Amy have recognised the harms that arose from those failures. They've also, and I think this is important because this is something I encourage them to do in my report, they've acknowledged that they have a role in being flexible and constructive in finding and resourcing solutions when issues arise in the Streets Ahead programme in the years ahead. The inquiry also found examples of unacceptable behaviour, in particular involving the harassment and abuse of public officials and their families by a number of people supportive of or involved with the campaign. I made some observations about that in my report, and I suggested that it would be appropriate and would support reconciliation for that to be recognised in an appropriate way. And I was pleased to see a statement that Stag issued apologising for distress or harm arising from behaviour of anyone involved in the campaign and expressing sympathy for those who suffered distress when the dispute affected them. So I run through all this because I wanted to take the opportunity to thank everybody I just referred to for responding so far in a constructive way, because I think that creates a basis for moving forward together, all of you across the city moving forward together. When I launched the report, I recalled that the dispute had been a dark time for Sheffield. Lots of things have been done, especially around resolving much of the directly tree-related issues since 2018, especially through the sterling work of the Street Tree Partnership, who I really want to commend again. But I also noted there was a lot more to do. And that was why, in the light of all the evidence we received, which is set out in considerable detail in the report, we therefore thought very carefully about the recommendations we should make. And I deliberately focused on recommendations that supported my terms of reference. In other words, recommendations which look to contribute to reconciliation, recovery from the dispute, and enabled everybody to focus now on the future and move on and learn the appropriate lessons. The report makes clear that we considered that the council had got many things wrong and had not used its authority in a proportionate or appropriate way. But I think it might also be helpful for me to remind everybody that, and I said this in paragraph 985 on page 189 of my report, having exhaustively looked at all of the available evidence, the inquiry did not find that the council had exceeded the use of its authority, or that there had been criminal conduct, or contempt of court, or breach of professional standards. I understand that it's always possible in cases like this to find further questions to pursue. I do want, though, to offer you my view that I am sceptical that relitigating things that happened during the dispute or commissioning further investigations, given everything the inquiry and others before us have done, is likely to help you very much. You have spent quite a lot of money now establishing what went wrong in the past, and I hope that you will now focus on learning the lessons and ensuring that you can manage things well in the future. In that spirit, Lord Mayor, I'd like to say a few things about the recommendations I made in my report. There are three sets of recommendations. The first set was around actions to support reconciliation, and I offered the council a definition of reconciliation as a process supported by recognition of errors when they've been established and the issuing of apologies. I think the council have been very clear in doing what they've done so far on that, and I know that further work is underway, and I welcome that. I understand that the council has also now formally dropped outstanding financial claims against a number of campaigners, which is something I also recommended, and in fact has gone a bit further by reimbursing a number of people who had made payments arising from legal proceedings. That does seem to me to be an effective discharge of the underlying issue that I thought needed redress in the recommendation I made on that point. I hope that the issue of final apologies by Amy and the council and the dropping of outstanding financial claims will contribute to setting the tone now for work on my other recommendations. So my second set of recommendations looked at the Streets Ahead contract and what needs to be done for the remainder of the contract. I want again to say that I think council and Amy are fortunate to have the Street Tree Partnership and its strategy to support you all. And I really hope that on all sides, you will invest in ensuring the strength and success of that partnership, not just now, but through the whole of the remaining 14 years of the contract. And I made some specific suggestions on how you could do that in my report. I also think that in the immediate term, those streets which remain outstanding from the core investment period of the Streets Ahead contract are a visible reminder of the dispute. And I think making swift progress to ensure that they're brought to a better standard on the basis of appropriate consultation and agreement is desirable, both for the people who live on those streets and for the city in general. And I want again to say that I do think Amy has a pivotal role to play in finding flexible and constructive solutions and in contributing to the funding of those solutions for these, what I would call legacy issues. I am sure that new issues will also arise in the remaining 14 years of the contract. That's inevitably going to be the case. And I hope that everybody can approach the resolution of new issues when they come up in a spirit of partnership and consensus, recognizing on all sides that there is sometimes going to be a need for compromise. Now, my third and final set of recommendations relate to the issues that the inquiry exposed in the council that go beyond the handling of the street tree dispute. Many issues the inquiry uncovered relate to aspects of the council's processes, culture, and ways of working. Dealing with those issues is the responsibility not just of officers, but also of members. And among members, it's a shared responsibility between those who are in the executive and those in opposition roles. Again, making progress will mean sustaining an emphasis on partnership, on local engagement and consultation with the citizens of the city, and ensuring that these themes are properly embedded and lived in real action in the council's overall corporate change program and how you want things to be different in future. I observed in my report that many of the inquiry's conclusions and recommendations in relation to these wider issues across the council are in fact ones the council itself has recognised for some time. And I think that makes it possible to have a degree of confidence about the scope to make progress. My recommendations basically are an opportunity to build on momentum which has started to be created. That said, it is important to recognise that large-scale culture change of the sort that you are embarking on and which is necessary is not something that can be achieved instantly. It is going to take time and effort, especially given the wide array of challenges that the council faces, not least all the financial challenges that you're confronted with. And I just want to say that I hope everyone with an interest, whether their interest is in the green infrastructure of the city or in matters of governance, everyone on all sides, I hope will think carefully about how they can best play a constructive role, not, as I've said, in further raking over the coals of the past, but in contributing to solutions and accountability for the future. Now, Lord Mayor, I had understood that you may be discussing a motion today, and I had been briefed on the kinds of things that you were thinking of discussing, and I understand there's been some discussion across the political parties about that. And I just wanted to offer you the observation that, as I said in the report, identifying a lesson is not the same thing as learning a lesson. Learning lessons, if you're going to do it successfully, requires discussion to broaden understanding and to develop agreement on how to move forward. And for what it's worth, my own view is that the draft of the motion that I saw a day or so ago, I don't know if it's still the draft you'll end up discussing or whether you'll adopt it, but for what it's worth, I thought that that process set out in there was a valuable step in what I think is necessary in terms of making sure the lessons aren't simply identified, but are also genuinely learned. So my hope is that across the city, you can now work together and everyone, officers, members, campaigners, and Amy as a contractor, can move forward with energy and confidence and determination. So dispute before too long becomes an ever dimmer blip in the past. Thank you again for inviting me here today, and let me wish you the best of luck for your deliberations now and into the future. Thank you very much.
Can I just say thank you very much, Sir Mark. You've given us a lot of food for thought, and thank you too for giving up your time to talk to us this afternoon. And I hope we're going to make the progress that you have set us on the path for. Thank you. Okay. Having received that talk from Sir Mark, which I think was very important for all of us to hear, despite the fact that our previous leader and other people have made apologies on behalf of the council, as the Lord Mayor, I am going to reiterate a full apology from all of the councillors, the council here. I'm going to be reading it so that I make sure I get it right. So here it is. At the Strategy and Resources Committee on the 15th of March, the leader of the council made an initial apology on behalf of all of us. In my role as Lord Mayor, I would like to repeat that apology to ensure it has reached as many people as possible. As Sir Mark's report makes clear, the street trees dispute was a dark period for Sheffield, and ultimately it was avoidable. During the design and implementation of the Streets Ahead contract, there was a sustained failure of strategic leadership, and there were a series of mistakes and significant errors of judgment. The inquiry was clear that those failures, mistakes, and errors of judgment caused substantial and, in some cases, irreversible harm to those involved, residents, campaigners, and our own staff from the council and partner organisations. We have said sorry in the past about specific failings, and the Chief Executive and Leader of the Council have given unreserved apologies for what went wrong during that time. I would like now to reiterate that unreserved, unequivocal apology to the people of Sheffield about the Council's actions during the course of the dispute. I am sorry. I am sorry that we got things really badly wrong. As the leader of the council said in March, the report is a detailed and tough read. Its conclusions and recommendations set out what we as a council need to do to change so that a dispute like that can never happen again. It describes the harm to individuals, to communities, to the environment, to the city's reputation, and to the trust and confidence that the people of Sheffield have in their council. I agree with the leader that the loss of trust and the harm we caused is by far the worst bit. As we have all said previously, we fully accept all of the conclusions and recommendations and have committed to doing everything Sir Mark thinks we should, and this includes making personal apologies where they are needed. The leader of the council took immediate action on several fronts when we received the report. There were a number of campaigners who we still had outstanding financial claims against as a result of legal action around the time of the dispute. As Sir Mark has just said, these have all been dropped, and we have also reimbursed all campaigners who paid those claims. We've also commissioned the Chief Executive to bring a report to the Strategy and Resources Committee in June for debate and endorsement by the Council. She will describe today how that report will support the Council to make good on every recommendation. As Sir Mark has said, identifying a lesson is not the same as learning it. So that paper will also describe in detail the process that we will go through to enable those lessons to be truly and properly learned, so that we do not make similar mistakes ever again. As I said at the beginning, the street trees dispute was a dark time for this city, and none of us ever want to return to those dark days. I do believe that we are all on the same page. We want what is best for this city, and repeating our mistakes is not an option. The progress since the 2018 discussions has shown us that we can work together. The work of the Street Tree Partnership has been exemplary in demonstrating this. This gives me hope that we have a foundation on which to build, move forward as a city, and create together a brighter and kinder future. Thank you. I'm now going to ask the Chief Executive to also say her piece.
Thank you. I'd like to start today by thanking all those involved in organising today's EGM. Particular thanks to the Lord Mayor for the huge amount of engagement she's put in to make this possible, to the cross-party members working group for their sensitive approach and input, and to a range of campaigners for their thoughtful reflections, engagement or feedback at different points in the process. The Lord Mayor set out the plan for the meeting today, and we'll hear more a little later. And on behalf of our officer team, I want to welcome this opportunity to approach council meetings in a new way. Some may have thought that a topic of this sensitivity was not the place to start. I disagree. Topics like this, where openness has been highlighted as an issue, are precisely those where we must demonstrate a clear difference between the present and the past. I don't believe we should apologise for trying something different today and stepping into an uncertain and possibly uncomfortable space. We are seeking progress, not perfection, and we will not make progress by doing the same things in the same way we have always done. In the weeks since the publication of Sir Mark's report, the Council has been constrained in what it could publicly communicate by the pre-election period, and while I understand that this has frustrated some people, the conditions during this period are non-negotiable. However, we have continued to work determinedly on the Council's response to the recommendations. We are committed to making good on the promises that we made immediately following publication of the report. We are taking the report seriously, we are taking action, and we will continue to do so. We have completed recommendation 4 from Sir Mark's report, dropping all outstanding financial claims, and we decided to go further, as the Lord Mayor and Sir Mark have said, and reimburse those who had paid. The applicable people received these payments between the 14th and the 18th of April. On the day of the publication of the report, the following day, and at the 15th of March meeting of the Strategy and Resources Committee, the Leader of the Council and I both made apologies. These were initial apologies, acknowledging that we needed time to fully absorb the inquiry report and all the findings within it, as Mark asked and encouraged us to do. Sir Mark recommended the Council apologise for both adopting a flawed plan and the things it got wrong in the course of the dispute. The full text of this apology will come to the Strategy and Resources Committee during June. This will be used to support the individual apologies that the Leader of the Council made clear that we will make. Amy issued their apology this week, indicating their commitment to working with the Council, the City and the Street Tree Partnership to see Streets Ahead continue to improve and meet Sheffield's needs. And I would also like to thank Stag for the apology they sent to the Council, for Council staff and for members responding to Sir Mark's observations. Through the conversations we've had since the publication of the report and the representations we've received, there has been a clear message that apologies without change are not sufficient. Equally, as Mark has said today, driving such change in a huge, complex organisation is not an overnight job. It is going to take real persistence and determination. It is going to require us not just to pay lip service to our new values, but to model them day in and day out, to make sure people, the citizens we serve, and the staff who make us who we are at the heart of all we do, to hold ourselves to the highest standards of openness and honesty, and to work together across boundaries within the organisation and ever more collaboratively with partners and communities to get things done. It is going to require the strength and humility to seek and acknowledge feedback, to reflect honestly when we make missteps or things don't go quite as we might hope or expect, and to remain resolute in our long-term commitment to change. An important aspect of the report is that there is no criticism of junior officers. In fact, it was the more junior officers involved in the street tree work who were raising concerns and that weren't listened to. Learning the lessons of the inquiry means listening to our staff, valuing their insights and treating them with kindness and respect, particularly at times of stress. At the Strategy and Resources Committee meeting in June, I'll bring a report which addresses the recommendations, setting out actions, timescales and monitoring arrangements. This will enable the Council to build on progress to date, take immediate actions and lay out plans to ensure lessons are learned and integrated across the organisation. I'm really looking forward to listening to the reflections shared today and ensuring they are reflected in our report to Strategy and Resources. Through this next step of the journey, we hope to demonstrate an ongoing commitment to the report, to change and to integrating the actions we need to take into our corporate change programme so that issues like this do not occur again. While the Council will always have to make hard decisions within limited resources and weigh up the views of many different people with different priorities, we want to centre public voice from all quarters much more prominently in all we do. We also understand that for some people there is too much water under the bridge. Trust has been lost, and while we hope to regain it, that will be a long process. We understand that the Council's actions during the dispute mean that there are some people who are unlikely to trust us again. Commissioning the inquiry was part of the journey to regaining trust from a greater number of people. This meeting also aims to support the ongoing recovery from the dispute. The actions we take next, over this year and coming years, will also work towards this aim. To close, Sir Mark and his team received over 1 million documents and spoke in private and in public to a huge range of people. This substantial evidence base underpins their final report, which is precise in what it found. There will be a variety of views on what should happen next, and where these diverge, we will take the inquiry report, its findings and recommendations as our definitive guidance on what happened and what we should do next. I look to the future as a Chief Executive thankful to be supported by a new senior officer leadership team in the Council. I'm proud that every member of the team I work alongside is determined to work collaboratively in service of the city we love. We are ambitious and optimistic about the future and are passionate about delivering positive outcomes for Sheffield. We want to overcome our challenges together by being a better organisation and strengthening our relationships with citizens, communities, partners and staff. We've already made a start on this, as acknowledged by Sir Mark and in the recent LGA Peer Challenge. The city, country and our world are facing huge challenges that have and will continue to impact our organisation. The Council has also received other reports which make similar findings to the Street Tree Inquiry, such as the Race Equality Commission and the LGA Peer Challenge report. As committed public servants, we will ensure that, as we formulate plans and take action, we will do so in a way that touches the whole organisation and our culture. We will not address findings in a vacuum, but learn the lessons collectively. We will learn from the past to prepare for the future and become a more resilient, adaptable organisation. I'd like to end where I started today by thanking everyone here for their participation and for their openness and trust in working together for the benefit of the whole city. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Exec. We're now going to move on to comments, questions or statements from members of the public about the issues raised by the Sheffield Street Trees Inquiry report. I will invite each person in turn who I call to come to the microphone in order to be able to make their statement or ask their question. And the first person I'm going to call, I believe, is Richard Ward with his... Ooh. Sorry? Absolutely fine. So we have Rebecca Hammond, who is going to make a statement on behalf of STAG. Thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Can everyone hear me okay? I will try to speak up. Sheffield Tree Action Group welcomes Sir Mark Lowcock's findings. We do not need to revisit his very serious conclusions in this statement. Sir Mark showed us a devastating failure in leadership and a culture that demonstrates a deep crisis beyond the tree dispute of leadership, accountability, openness, deep-seated hostility to challenge, and a failure to regulate standards in public life. Leading politicians' aggressive responses to any criticism reveals a deeply inappropriate culture. Councillors now have a historic opportunity to champion enduring cultural change. The recommendations in the Lowcock report provide a framework for such change, as well as a focus for efforts towards reconciliation. We are extremely disappointed by the absence of certain key people today, notwithstanding the excuses or explanations that have been offered, particularly as some of them played significant roles in the dispute. They should be here today to be part of the resolution and hear the apology that the Lord Mayor has given on their behalf.
Hear, hear.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, for that apology. Green spaces where people live are vital assets in our growing crises of health and biodiversity. We said that frequently throughout the dispute. As we move forward, the local plan and other policies must recognise the importance of street trees and green spaces right where people live and work. They will play an increasing role in the city's response to the health and nature crisis, and there must be a clear recognition of the ways in which street trees enhance well-being and amenity across the city. STAG will continue to promote these issues through the Street Tree Partnership and through our support for environmental education about the contribution of street trees in the public domain. The reach of the Lowcock report goes way beyond the street trees dispute. That bitter dispute was symptomatic of a deeper cultural and governance crisis. Let's recognise that crisis and make it a driver for change and new confidence at all levels in the city, in the conduct of politics and administration of our affairs. Sheffield cannot afford to remain deaf to the legitimate concerns of its citizens. Public consultations must be meaningful. Decisions must be timely, transparent, and well evidenced. Our city's reputation was damaged by the street trees dispute. Let's promote respectful debate and consensus, and never again use othering and conflict as political tools. We ask the full council to accept the findings of the Lowcock report and acknowledge their failings. Councillors must accept collective responsibility for ensuring that there is a comprehensive plan to implement all the Lowcock recommendations. That process must engage with its stakeholders. STAG remains a committed contributor, ready to provide positive and well-informed perspectives to the change process. Thank you.
Thank you, Stag, for a very generous statement. And yes, we will use this as part of our platform for moving forward. I know the Chief Executive will be very pleased with the proposals that you've given us. The next question is from Calvin Payne. Is there a microphone there for you, Calvin?
Hello, is that good enough? Thanks. That sounds okay to me. There we go. It is. It is. I think, like a lot of people, I had a question for a particular individual or individuals. I started writing my email at 8 o'clock on Friday morning, and by the time I finished, the council leader resigned, and the news of the National Labour Party's intervention had been belatedly revealed. I want to touch. There are a lot of experiences of a lot of people, and we just heard from a colleague. We've heard from people down there. But I want to ask about a specific effect on a small number of people that it's become very difficult to get anyone to even acknowledge, councillors, officers, people in front of me. And that is that you people tried to send people to prison. Now, you can't just sorry your way out of that. 8 people had a piece of paper in red lettering saying Sheffield City Council requests the committal to prison of. It didn't just happen. It didn't just happen. You people sat in rooms and decided to make that happen. And you've done nothing to acknowledge that some of us in work and in business still have these sentences, and you have to explain them. It's quite good fun explaining them, I must admit. Usually it's quite a good reaction. But not always. Not always. When you've been named in 2 High Court junctions and received 3 prison sentences for breaching that injunction, that comes up. That comes up in your life, and it will continue to do so. In the 2018 trial, the court was stopped when the judge asked, who are Sheffield City Council? I can see your lawyers, I can see your officers, but is this a political decision? Are the political leadership trying to imprison, including an opposition councillor, its citizens? And the answer came back very clearly. Yes, we are happy. And I wanted to ask Councillor Fox, but he's hiding. I wanted to ask people, they're hiding. Well, we weren't hiding that day when in that court case. And you cannot... This is a very concrete issue. This isn't just some bad feelings. This isn't just some upset. This is something that can be done something about. You cannot just put it into the long grass. You cannot just say we need to wait for another committee meeting. We need to wait for another council meeting. There is nothing more to find out. I keep being pushed back and back. The report found that the court was misled, and some of us got prison sentences as a result. There is nothing more to find out. Why don't you meet me, my colleague, and others, and talk about this? It's in your interest to do so, not to keep hiding it. Because I don't think there's anything about the last 7 years that says if you hide from and push and hide and put it into long grass and keep quiet and hope we'll go away, that there's any indication that that works with people up here. I want one simple thing, personally. I don't want sorry. I want to be exonerated. I want this... I want the new leader of the council, the chief executive, the legal and governance, to publicly and privately exonerate me and others and say not only did I not do anything wrong, but I stood up to a wrong, and if those of us that did so hadn't done so, that wrong would have been greater. More trees would have been felled. This council would have been in a worse position now. This council would have been in a worse position now. Our behaviour wasn't just something embarrassing to put away, to hide somewhere. This city is a better place for our actions. And you can call it contempt of court. You can call it whatever you like. We were right. You were wrong. I don't want an apology. I want you people to say that. Yeah.
Thank you, everybody. And I would like to say that we have said we were wrong and we are sorry. I am going to ask the Chief Executive to respond.
Sorry, Lord Mayor, I couldn't hear that. Would you repeat it, please?
I can say yes, it was wrong, and yes, we are sorry, as I think I have already said, and I will say again and again. And I'm willing to say that wherever you want me to, but in the meantime, I'm going to ask the Chief Exec to respond to Calvin's request.
Thank you. Sorry, thank you, and I want to just acknowledge the email that the contact that you've had with us. As I mentioned in my statement, we've been somewhat constrained in the conversations that we can have in the pre-election period, but we will be setting up those meetings, and I do want to reiterate the point that we have publicly apologised for the decision to pursue committal proceedings and therefore accepted that that was wrong. We'll build on that further in the forthcoming report to Strategy and Resources Committee. And as set out, we've dropped outstanding financial claims and have gone further by repaying those who already settled their claims. So we are happy, absolutely happy to have a meeting and discuss with yourself and others what further can be done or what might need to be done. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we move on now to Benoit Compin, please?
One, two, 1, 2. Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Hi. First of all, I just want to welcome the new members of the council, and I've got to say I'm full of encouragement and congratulations actually for this council here, because I think that things are moving forwards. Maybe not as fast as some may want, but I believe that Sheffield indeed has the opportunity to make a change on the national political scene and to pioneer on political sciences here. My question really joined Calvin's question really. It was pretty much more on the practical aspect, as when would you like to schedule these conversations and when would you like to initiate any movement towards reverting those cases at court. Thank you.
Can I just say we had the answer from the Chief Exec, which acknowledges what you have asked for, and that we will make sure that those meetings do take place. Thank you. My next questions are from Russell Johnson.
Good afternoon, Lord Mayor, Council, officers, media. Thank you all for this opportunity to be here. Now, as with the other public questioners, it's a little bit tricky because when these questions were written, the regime was completely different running the city. In view of the turmoil and the special measures which National Labour has imposed on our egregious senior councillors, then things are rather different. However, therefore, Lord Mayor, I must rephrase some of the questions. First one follows on really from Calvin, although a hard act to follow, but in more general terms, and I think Kate Joseph's answer was far from satisfactory on this just now. Does the current leadership, whoever they are, and are any Labour councillors willing to stick their heads above the parapet today? I wonder, we'll see. Does the current leadership regret that SCC sought to illegitimately imprison citizens during the scandal? Will it make appropriate reparations to those harmed? And by appropriate, I mean not just reimburse the monies paid to the court that the council demanded from the judge, but other reparations as well, including, by the way, any legal fees that those people incurred in order to seek their defence against this vicious council. And I'd like to hear a commitment on specifics, not another apology, because Calvin has just said that he doesn't want that. His demands go much further. Quite reasonably so, in my view. Second question. Why has SCC failed, after many months of this new transparent council who has learned lessons, in inverted commas, to respond to formal complaints to the so-called undertakers? Just by way of background, for those who don't understand, one of the intimidatory strategies employed by the council during the scandal was to, in effect, force people through blackmail to sign undertakings, very restrictive, draconian undertakings, with great threat if they failed. There's since been a formal complaint by a number of the so-called undertakers This has been pushed into the long grass, typical SCC style. And my question is therefore, what is the SCC's intention, specifically, not another lame apology, please, specifically towards those people who suffered harms, as described by Sir Mark? Next question. Would the council encourage or welcome a police investigation into possible misuse of public monies, a criminal offence, malfeasance or misfeasance, or other criminality based on Lowcock evidence? Now, I did listen to Sir Mark very carefully, and I have to say, council, it was not in his remit to exonerate or make any comment particularly at all about possible legal remedies to address council misbehaviours. So that stands, notwithstanding what Sir Mark said. And I want, again, a specific answer, please, from someone, not sure who. Another question relates to council culture, which, although Lowcock described the events of some years ago, it is my view, based on sound evidence over the intervening years, that council culture remains just as it was. Does it remain the council's view, therefore, that the most effective way to address challenge is to ignore it and to obfuscate? A word I've applied many times in this chamber to council behaviours. And my final question, the first one on the list, which I'll modify because of the change of regime. Whoever is acting as leader in the current turmoil, would they please say whether there can be real change in this council whilst Councillors Lodge and Fox remain as members? Now, I realise they've resigned from some of their posts, but it's my view that they should resign as members immediately. Do we have any Labour members who are willing to answer this question? Thank you.
Again, not one of them has the guts to stand up. Not one. They all sat there.
Where are you, Labour? Where are you?
Right, let's just be very clear. This is going to be a discussion and answers. There will be a discussion period later. But at the moment, we're going to move this meeting along in a spirit of conciliation. Okay? Thank you. In answer to the questions, your question about Councillors Fox and Lodge will have to be addressed to them. I don't think any of us here can speak on their behalf as to their future plans.
Is nobody speaking for Labour today, Lord Mayor?
I'm not speaking for those two councillors. They will speak for themselves.
Nobody else?
I have answered that question, thank you. On the question of does it remain the council's view that the most effective way to address challenge is to ignore and obfuscate? No. Let's be very clear. The council has committed publicly to being open and honest at all times, to engage positively and proactively with the public, and to hear all perspectives and views before coming to a decision. And this afternoon's meeting is one attempt in many to do this. Thank you.
How does that go?
Because the next session, to which you will all be invited, is about a discussion about the recommendations from Sir Mark Lowcock's report. Okay?
Point of information. Could I ask, is it the intention today to put a motion to the councillors gathered here today for them to vote on? Because otherwise we're just having a discussion and we want to see some commitment to some action in the way today, and we'd like to see the wording of that motion.
As I said, when we have the wording of that and any amendments, I will be sharing it with you all. We're going to have... Right, it's on the website already.
This is very irregular, Lord Mayor. Most irregular.
Well, this is an extraordinary meeting and we're trying our best.
In more ways than one.
What I'm trying to explain is that we're going to have discussion.
Same old, same old.
No, it isn't. And I think you ought to just listen. What I was saying, no, I'm still speaking, thank you. I have said we are going to have discussion and we will have that motion and debate, and it will be in that order. So there will be a debate around a motion and amendments at the end of the meeting. Thank you. I'm going to carry on answering these questions. No, if you want to come in after I've finished. When I have finished speaking on these, then I will call you to ask your question. Thank you.
Does the Constitution have anything to say about notice of motions in this circumstance, Lord Mayor? Could we be informed?
Right.
No.
I think we will say the answer around the police investigation is that we are accepting what Sir Mark has said, which is that there was no criminality or misuse of public money.
No.
On the question of the undertakers, we're still in the process of considering this complaint, and how we respond will be part of the report to Strategy and Resources in June. Where am I? Sorry. And those who've made that complaint, the undertakers, will be kept informed of what is being proposed. Right. I'm sorry. Have I got the answers to all of the questions you asked?
Well,
No. You may not like my answers, but they are the answers. So which ones have I missed?
You've missed proper answers to any, really.
Well,
as usual. This is my experience in this chamber. Very sad. And continues to be the case.
So did I get them all? Right, okay. In that case, we are now going to move on to questions from Mr. Buxton. If Mr. Buxton's not here, I said that I would read his questions for him. Yeah?
Yes, he expects them to be read out.
Yes, and here we go.
Yep.
Will all the citizens intimidated with accusations and threats of legal action receive a personal and detailed apology? Yes. We will set out as part of the Strategy and Resources Committee report how members of the public who were named during the street trees dispute will be able to come forward. Those individuals who are known to the council will be contacted directly to apologise. And Mr. Buxton's second question: will the council also publish a public apology recognising and unconditionally acknowledging the wrongful use of power resulting in misconduct by Sheffield City Council, where purposefully intimidating individuals with demonstrably illegitimate legal threats of damages? Many thanks and regards from Justin.
Well done, Mr. Buxton.
So, as part of the S&R committee report, we will make a full apology for the things that the council's got wrong during the dispute, in line with the recommendations that Sir Mark has made in his report. Right. Did you want to come in at this point?
Yes, I was told this morning that there was a plan to have breakout groups, and I wonder if you're going to inform us about them, what status of this, whether the motion will happen before that, whether it's happening after that. I feel, having been involved in this committee for over 30 years, this is the most extraordinary meeting. To not have a written motion before the meeting, at the beginning of the meeting, and then the meeting is going to arrive soon.
Okay.
This is to silence dissent.
I don't feel as though this body has any legal status, because we're not actually discussing something that's recognised as a way that this body is supposed to make decisions. And I find that really difficult. And as you keep saying, the trees are a
after we've heard all of the questions and also the responses, we will have a break and we will go into the reception rooms. Everybody
It's a diversion.
It is not. No, hang on. No, I'm answering. And when I'm answering, you do have to listen. And then you can ask your question. So please sit down. Please sit down.
Sham consultation.
Thank you. It is not a sham consultation. What we will be doing in the reception rooms is receiving all of the recommendations that we've had from Sir Mark Lowcock, and they will be discussed.
Let's see some debate in the chamber.
Hang on. Please let me answer, because when I have answered and explained, then you may have further questions. There will be discussion around all of the recommendations as you have asked us to do.
Will Labour be there?
Have I said, please wait until I've finished? Do me the courtesy, please. That discussion will include all councillors and all of the members of the gallery if they choose to come. It will be to look at those recommendations and look at how we are going to fulfil them. It is not the end of any discussion or debate or consultation. It is a tiny step forward to try to look at those and talk about what those... I have asked you, please, to listen. It is discourteous not to. So, we will have that discussion. It will be for about an hour. It may be longer if people wish to discuss more. We will then come back here to this room and we will have a debate on the motion which was published on Friday. There will be amendments to it which we allowed up until this morning so that everybody could make an amendment from the political groups. So that is what we're going to be doing after we have finished responding to the questions. I know you say you don't trust us. The only way we can start to build that is by us demonstrating that we are serious about sitting and looking at those recommendations and how we are going to start to fulfil them. That is all I can promise at the moment, isn't it? I can say you are going to have a debate later, which you won't be able to take part in because it is councillors only. But during this session, where we're all going to be able to discuss the recommendations, we want you to be there. We do want you there saying, this recommendation, you could be doing this on it. This recommendation, you could be doing that on it. And that is what we hope to do by starting afresh from today. That is my request to you as the Lord Mayor, that you will join in. I have made that apology. I have said I want to work with everybody who is in that gallery, and I would ask you to accept that this is made in a spirit of starting to regain trust. I know it's really hard because we know what the report says about the way the council has behaved. But in order for us to start to make a difference, all of us, then that is what I'm asking you to do. Sorry, you may make a point.
Right at the beginning of the afternoon, you started at 2 o'clock.
Shh.
You said this afternoon you
No. Can I? No, okay. Okay. What I'm actually going to do, I'm going to hold that question. I want to finish getting answers to the questions and statements I've received. I am then going to ask Pete Tomad, who is the person who has been asked to facilitate the discussion, to explain what that format would be. So I would like you now to allow everybody else who's asked questions or made statements to have those questions answered, to make their statements in public, and then I will ask Pete to describe what we hope to do next, and then you can ask questions. Okay.
Will you be allowing any further statements, Lord Mayor?
I can't hear you.
May I be added to your list to make a short statement
No.
before you end this item, please?
No, because you have already spoken and you didn't submit that in time. But,
Yes,
but
I'm listening.
when Mr. Tommond speaks, you may indeed ask him what he thinks we are going to get out of this session.
Right, I might
and
mention to him,
anything
I
else.
think the council's trying to put the whole Lowcock report to bed. And they won't, you will not get away with it.
I do not believe anybody is trying to put this to bed. This is the very start of the process of working through the Lowcock report. You say you don't trust us. I get that. The only way we can show that is by continuing to work on it over the months and the year ahead. Okay?
Long grassing.
No, not long grass.
You're good at that.
No, not long grass at all. Right, I have a question from Isabel O'Leary. So, Isabel, do you want to ask your question?
Thank you. My original question was to say that one of the recommendations of the Lowcock report is that the council should give a comprehensive and fulsome apology, but I want much, much more than that. The council wasted at least £1.28 million on the street tree debacle. That hasn't been accounted for. I know Sir Mark Lowcock in his statement just now said that there was no evidence of misspending or anything like that. But I can't understand why this isn't being looked at. So my question was, has the council commissioned or is going to commission a public interest report from the council auditors to identify all the legal, financial and accountability implications? As an addition to that, because I suspect you're going to say no because Mark Lowcock said we don't need to, at least will you install a plaque in the entrance of the town hall in recognition of those who fought for our environmental heritage and were vindicated, and to serve as a reminder to all elected members that this failure of leadership must never happen again? Thank you.
Hear, hear.
Thank you, Isabel. In answer to your first question, the report to SNR in June will set out the actions to be taken both in the short and long term with associated time frames. In answer to your second question, I believe that is one of the amendments that will be coming up in the debate after our discussion. Okay. Sorry, where am I? That's Isabel. Right, and finally I have a comment statement from Vicky Seddon from Sheffield for Democracy.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. It's not a question from Sheffield for Democracy. It's a personal comment from myself. Okay. Of all the things, there were so many different aspects and points raised in the report. There was just one I wanted to make a comment on. There seem to have been well-intentioned attempts to address the arrangements for making decisions about which trees to take down and which to protect. But they did not succeed in making decisions that were acceptable. The Highway Trees Advisory Panel of 2015, a panel of councillors, had a short and unsuccessful life. The Independent Tree Panel, suggested by the Council's communication team, was set up in autumn 2015 and was comprised of various experts. They looked at the trees which had been labelled as problematic, and after seeking the views of households on those roads, advised which should be taken down and which not. But of the 782 trees they inspected, though 25 had already been taken down, they advised the council to replace 440 trees, and for 316 of them to be dealt with via alternative measures. But the council, of those 316, the council only accepted their advice on around 75 of these trees. So it's not surprising that people who were concerned about the trees should lose trust in the council and in its processes. And that is the comment I want to make to this meeting.
Thank you, Vicky. Yes, you're absolutely right. And I'm hoping that we have a more forward and positive way of working with the tree strategy group going forwards. But yes, it was wrong. Sorry, I don't know your name, I'm sorry. You are, do you know, you look different up there. Sorry, I'm just going to tell everybody that Annette has given me a book called What the Tree Saw, which I actually read to the children in the parlour. And we may have our differences, but that book was fabulous, and I'd like to thank you for your generosity in that. Now do carry on. Oh, I'm listening to Annette, and when she has finished, I will listen to you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I would say in the same vein, having mentioned the book, that I was very pleased that you invited some of us to spend some time with you and to relate to you in a very open way exactly what our experiences were over 3.5 and for some people a lot more years. And I was very pleased that you listened and that you took notice. And I would like to say that at the beginning of the dispute, I was a member of the Labour Party, and I went to Labour Party meetings to try and tell people that I thought they were making a terrible mistake. And I was humiliated, I was belittled. I asked our MP, Paul Blomfield, to meet with us at a public meeting in the Nether Edge, and he declined. So I just want to put on record that you were actually the first person from the Labour Party in Sheffield in an official position who took the time to listen. And had that happened several years ago, we would not be here today. All of this was entirely and utterly avoidable. And I think that I'm concerned about this breakout group because I think we've already relived all our experiences so many times, and it's absolutely destructive and unpleasant and soul-destroying. And I don't want to go into a small group with people who made the decisions to try and put my friends in prison and talk to them face to face. There's been no consultation about going to small groups. I feel we're being railroaded into participating in something we have had no say in whatsoever. To me, today isn't about us, it's about you. Yes. It's about you finally standing up, listening and taking responsibility for your actions. That's, to me, is one of the biggest purposes of it. I don't want to go to breakout group. I will not be going to breakout group. I would like to see a motion put to this council urgently so that people are clear that what we're discussing now is policy of this council that you are committed to and that you will ensure you enact. That's what I want to say, Chair.
Right, Annette, meeting you and your group was a painful experience. Excuse me. Well, go and plot outside. I think that meeting you and your group was difficult for all of us because you didn't know what I was going to say and vice versa. I think it was fruitful. It was the start of something. Now, when we were organising for this meeting, lots of people said, including Alison, who's not here, that she would not be attending and that other people wouldn't attend too, including, she said, that you weren't going to come. So I didn't know who would come and who wouldn't. I am talking about a discussion with councillors because I want us to actually talk to each other and not just have a debate of the deaf, which, as you know, so often happens. I wanted to ask the people in the gallery to come because I wanted you to be part of it. If you feel it should just be councillors talking to each other at this point, I completely accept that. But I didn't want you to think in any way that I didn't want any of you to be part of it. If you don't want to be part of it, that is absolutely fine. And we can talk about ways of being part of each other at another time. I'm happy to do that. It's not an obligation to come. Oh. It was an invitation. For you. Okay. Thank you, Annette. What I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to ask Pete.
Lord Mayor, point of order, please, Lord Mayor. Lord Mayor, we only received the timetable for this meeting about 50 minutes before it started. And the timetable that we were shown only allows about 15 minutes for the debate of the motion and I think up to 3 amendments, although we haven't yet seen the amendments on the motion. I am concerned, and in view of comments from members of the public up there, that they really want to hear that debate.
They will.
And I'm therefore going to propose that we change the order of the agenda to have the debate first, and then move to the discussion for those who want
to. The reason why we asked to have the discussion first was because I actually want us all to talk and listen to each other in a way that Sir Mark has asked us to as councillors. And that's why it's important.
It's a charade, a complete charade. It won't wash.
I am now talking to my fellow councillors.
Sorry.
And in that vein, it was about saying we as councillors have a responsibility to talk to each other and discuss those proposals from Sir Mark. And I wanted it to be in a way that wasn't just everybody shouting different things, but actually hearing each other and listening. I know that being in this council chamber and speaking in traditional ways is very important to some members. I also think that learning to speak to each other in new ways, as has been said by Sir Mark, has got to be something that's important to all of us if we are going to genuinely move on, work together in the council chamber and in committees. And that's why this proposal was being made.
A vote.
Sorry,
A vote, please.
hang on. Martin, sorry.
Thank you. No worries. I just want to second Councillor Alston's motion.
Right. Hang on, can I just check? I can just do this as a show of hands, can't I? Right. Those in favour of Councillor Alston's motion, please show. And those against. Okay. I'm now going to call a 5-minute break, comfort break, because I'm shattered. Okay, thank you. And we have the proposed motion in relation to considering the implications of the street tree inquiry on the city, Sheffield City Council, and on councillors involved in the decision-making at that time. Right. The proposed motion was published on Friday the 5th of May and has been circulated to members of the council and the gallery. Right. Okay. And I'm not going to read it out. I am just going to move it formally. And I believe that the lovely Deputy Mayor is going to formally second it.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Yes, very important notice of motion this, and I'm very happy to formally second the notice of motion.
Procedural bit I've missed. Where? Have we not done this? Oh, okay. Let's just try this again. Sorry, so glad this is my last meeting. At this point in the proceedings, we have to have a motion about this motion that we are about to read and about the amendments because they are moved without notice under the provisions of Council Procedure Rule 11A, Roman numeral 2, seeking permission for a motion and amendments to be considered at this meeting. And this needs to be moved and seconded and then voted on by a show of hands. Okay, I'm going to move it. Do you want to second it?
I will second that procedural motion.
Will you all put your hands up to show that you're willing to accept these? All right, that's great, thank you. And we don't need a short adjournment because we've all got them. We have proposed the motion and seconded it just now. So now I'm going to call on Councillor Turpin to move the amendment proposed by the Green Group. Councillor Turpin.
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. I started trying to prepare some words for this and unfortunately only managed to scribble out a page of rage at the dishonesty that's just took place in the local election that really demonstrated that parties haven't learnt these lessons about honesty and openness, but I'm just going to leave that there. I was part of the tree campaign and I stood under trees and I had many sleepless nights, and my wife and I had, there was plenty of tears in our house. My wife was pregnant with our second child. We had a man round the corner drive his car through barriers at her while she was choking on the floor, 8 months pregnant with my 4-year-old. The division caused by that whole scandal was just horrific. And it was a long time ago, and a lot has happened since then, but it still comes up, and I found myself getting quite emotional when Calvin was speaking as well. We can't have war forever, and we need to move on, and we can't keep having the same battles. There is a different way of doing politics. The way politics has been done in that way because that's the way people in this room and people not in this room have chose to do it that way. It doesn't have to be that way. I regret that the information about today's meeting wasn't given to people in the gallery early enough or sufficiently enough that did cause some shock and outrage. And I suspected it would be perceived like that, but there just wasn't the time to try and fill you all in about what was being planned. I do think that the ideas for the breakout room is about beginning a process of reconciliation and really fixing this problem, this thing that was broken in these chambers those years ago. Perhaps it's not the right time, and perhaps we need to come back to it, or indeed perhaps we are still going to go back to it after we finish this part. I do think it will be really worthwhile and really useful, and I do seriously implore you all to come and contribute. You have great expertise in it. It's not about reliving the pains, it's about looking forward and coming up with the solutions to fix what has been broken. And one point on the amendment is I just wanted to put in point 9 to have a time scale so that it's absolutely clear that this isn't sweeping things under the carpet. We want to nail a time scale for when these solutions are going to be done. And I think it's really important that it's not just seen to be done, but it is being done. So I'll leave it at there. Thank you very much, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Turpin, and thank you for what you have said, both about the proposed process, but also about what happened to you, and the apology clearly extends to you as well, doesn't it? Okay, thank you. Can we just say briefly that the timescale for implementing all actions will be published because it will be in part of the report which will go to the S&R committee, which does meet in June. So I'm confident that that's going to happen, okay? But you will have to perhaps chivvy the next Lord Mayor to make sure that that does happen. Thank you. And can I ask Councillor Johnson, are you next? Or am I asking somebody else?
I'm going to ask Councillor Bernard Littles to second
sorry,
this one.
I've got Douglas down. I do apologise. Bernard, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you, Chamber, and people in the gallery. Thank you for being here. I was a Green councillor in Sheffield between 2006 and 2010 with Gillian Creasy and later with Rob Murphy. It was a tough time, being the three of us. During that time, we were under a lot of pressure because the council had chosen to take the strategic decision to outsource the management of our highways to a multinational company, a company accountable to its shareholders, but not to people that live on the streets of our city. Real questions were never asked because we always had weren't never answered because we got the reply, commercial sensitivity, all the way through. In meeting after meeting, our small group were told by senior council officers, including the then Chief Executive Bob Kerslake, that our concerns about inadequate consultation would be dealt with. we were never convinced. And I think the debacle that we're faced with now proves us right. I am proud to have been active in the street campaign. We want us as a council to commit to the spirit of the committee system, the full spirit of the committee system, and I think that was a result of the work of the Our City campaign, which came out of this debacle. So I think we should honour it and go forward in honouring that and work together, because the people of the city said in that referendum, we don't like all this adversarial stuff. Sorry, I was going to say another word, stuff. We want you to be working together. We want every councillor that we elect to be in there doing the best that they can for the people of Sheffield and seek conciliation and work forward. So I commend our amendment to the council. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Can I just ask for clarification? You said Bob Kerslake, and I think it might have been John Mothersole. I don't want us to name Bob if it wasn't him. Can somebody who was a councillor way back then? It was still Bob. Okay, apologies, Bernard. I wanted to thank you. Right, so we've had those proposals. Can I now call upon Councillor Shafak Mohammed to move amendment number 2, and you can speak for up to 2 minutes.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and more importantly, thank you to the members of the public who came here today to actually take part. It's really important that we hear your views and we actually start to listen to you. I think one of the problems that we've had for the last many years is that we didn't listen to you. When I say we, the council, I was with you, so don't personally say I wasn't listening to you, but the city council didn't listen to you, ignored your concerns, and actually tried to criminalise some of you. And a very powerful speech, Kelvin. It really is heartfelt, and I really hope that the council does listen to what you've said and actually does what you've asked for, because we have to. We owe you that apology. The fact that we were trying to criminalise our own citizens shows how out of touch this council became. And for me, we have to start to rebuild that trust. It's not going to be easy. We may have new faces here, but the culture may well still exist. And some people are blaming the cabinet system. For me, this could happen under any governance system. When a group of councillors decide they know best, they start to jeer and sneer at people, and that's what we saw, or to eject opposition out of this council and then to shout at people who were in solidarity with Alison, because that's what I was subjected to, was totally out of order. And I think people have to go and think. Some of the colleagues across there will no doubt have to think about, could they have done more to rein in the excesses of the top table that clearly is not here today. And some of them have gone. And my view is that, can some of those people change and rebuild trust? And it's my fundamental view that some of them, in my opinion, have lost that trust. And rather than just stepping down from positions on that top table, maybe actually vacate this hall and other civic roles they have to let this city have a new start. It's going to be really difficult for you. I absolutely understand it. But how much, we've got to rebuild that trust. And if the same people that made the mistakes, because let's be clear, we just had a set of elections where the Labour Party wanted outright control and talked about trust and transparency. Then I hear from a senior Labour councillor that 10, 12 days before the election, they knew they were in special measures. Therefore, where's that openness and transparency? You guys know this more than me. You need to go and sort this out. Because I really feel for you today. It's really difficult. It really is what's happening. And you've got to go away as a group whenever you're going to meet and sort some of this out, because the city deserves not only a strong group that's in administration, but also in opposition. Whichever way it's going to fall, I don't know. We may end up with a coalition of some sorts, 2 or 3 parties, but we've got to take the city forward. So please, I feel for you today, but we do need you to be on board and actually start putting some of those rights, those wrongs that were, done to people of Sheffield.
Thank you, Councillor Shafak. Oh, sorry, Councillor Mohammed. Although, as you know, I get called Councillor Mohammed several times. I'm still wondering. Can we have the seconder, which is Councillor Penny Baker?
Good. Hello, folks. Some of you I haven't seen for a while, but some of them, yes, I feel like you're friends, because I remember the days down in Riverlin Valley and other places where all sorts of things happened that really opened my eyes to what can happen when things go wrong. And the fortitude and the strength shown by individual members of the public, who some of you had never met each other before, and you came together and you made a difference. I was there at Riverlin Valley when that poor lady actually decided to blow a trumpet twice. I don't know where it's there, where the lady was stood behind a tree, actually ended up with a bruised size because of the plastic fence that they were pushing at the side of her to try and get it behind her. These things are not acceptable. Gratefully, it's been accepted now. This is a major step forward. But thank you to you who've come back with such an open and magnanimous ideas and suggestions, and I think we just have to say thank you to you, because you've opened a lot of doors to enable these differences to come about. A lot of differences have come about within the council. The committee system is beginning to work. It is not perfect. We have a long way to go. But attitudes are changing, and hopefully they will continue to change. And it all comes back to the great tree debacle, when members of the public in our city stood up for what they believed in and stood up for what they knew was right. And from that, this council is going to change and this city is going to change. And I thank you. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Okay, we're now open to open debate. Can I have an indication, apart from Tim, who I've already got, about who... Oh, my goodness me.
Richard Shows first.
Okay. Right. Just bear with me. What? No, keep your hands up while I get some names. Sorry.
It's Richard, I'll go not in order.
No.
Richard, Sophie, Douglas, Cliff Woodcraft.
Hang on. Yeah.
Brian.
Oh, sorry. Brian's on the Douglas. Yeah.
Mark.
Mark.
Fran.
Okay. Yes.
We've got you, Richard.
Is that it? Oh, let's see. Were you going to say anything, Craig? Oh, I thought. Right. Okay. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2. Right. Tim.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I don't envy the position you've been put in today, and I don't doubt the apologies that have been given here. A genuine first step on the road to a more open council would have come from all those directly involved in the decisions at the time. Some of them have been elected elsewhere. Trust, truth, transparency must be in the persona of every public-facing organisation. I fear Sheffield Labour is not there yet. I'd hoped when Councillors Perec and Milson were busy bringing in many of their fellow councillors to Crooks this last 2 months, that the monument to the success of the tree campaigners, the Western Road trees that are still standing today because of their campaign, I hope that they were brought in, the councillors that is, were brought in there to reflect on what happens when a council fails to listen, is not open and dealing honestly with the public. From what I have seen today, we are a long way away from that culture shift needed. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Douglas.
Well, thank you, Lord Mayor. I just wanted to reflect on the fact, I asked Councillor Little if he'd speak on this, because Bernard was in the council chamber here as one of the, really the only two voices of opposition back in 2006. When I spoke at the Strategy and Resources Committee earlier in the year, I talked about the small voices that were speaking up, because of course the points that Smart Lowcock made is none of this was inevitable. We now know in clear terms, in black and white, that the whole PFI outsourcing project was set up in respect of the tree felling completely wrongly from the start, and that was based on some fundamental errors of not talking to the right people in the right place at the right time. And there were people who were speaking up against then about it at that time. But I want to say that's a long time ago. That doesn't invalidate that it happened, but I'm just reflecting on the fact that some people in this chamber were still in primary school when Bernard was elected and those conversations were going on about the formation of the contract. And the point about that is that, and I was thinking about that because in 2013 I first became involved in supporting people who were bitterly angry and just really upset, saddened by trees being cut down on their road. And they were talking about taking their children to school and the children being in tears as they went on the street. These really well-loved trees that were such a part of their lives, and had been, because you're talking about toddlers and young children that have been there all their lives and being taken away. And people began to realise what an impact those magnificent street trees have on the streets of Sheffield. So I was thinking about children of that age who could be in this council chamber now. And the significance of this is that this wasn't just a one-off error, one set of errors. We're talking about a 15-year period when things were continued to go wrong and wronger. And that is the truth that we need to confront in this. We talk about truth and reconciliation. And I say this because we can only move to reconciliation once we've established the truth. But the truth is also that we do need to move on. We do need to have reconciliation. And I suppose my request to everyone actually in this room, is that you've read the Lowcock report, and I'd like everyone to read it again in 12 months' time. Because actually, as time goes past, it becomes quite incredible. And if you're new to this, if you weren't here for all that time, you read this and you think, what is this? It's also the truth that this council has moved on and is dramatically different from that horrible bullying culture that we had several years ago. I'm not saying it's perfect, but it has moved on dramatically. So I'd like people to read the Lowcock report again in 12 months' time and just reflect, not on how well we're doing then, but just a reminder of what we don't want to go back to. And in 3 years' time, I think it's important to read it again. Just because, as I said, it's not to reflect on how badly things are being done in the past, but how well things will be done in the future because we have learned from the lessons of history. Thank you.
Thank you, Douglas. Have we got councillors here who were at primary school, or were you just using it as an analogy?
I'm sure we have. I wasn't asking them to identify themselves, but yes. Everyone put their hands up.
I'm sorry. Brian, I don't believe that, but other people I do. Right. I'm sorry. Councillor Jones, please.
Thank you, Chair. And I'm informed that Councillor Havey is 23, so he probably was in primary school in 2010. So you're right, Douglas. I'd also like to echo some of the elements that Councillor Johnson has said there, in so much that as I've looked through this report, even if you look at the timeline now, under 22, it said that we moved the Street Tree Partnership into the final version. Within this document itself, we're making errors still that we've made. The Street Tree Partnership is not a final version. When it was set up, when we took it through committee, when we took it through Cabinet, it was a working policy. The reason it was a working policy was a deliberate thought from us at the time to say that we will never say that we've got everything right. We will never say that things are perfect, and we will always review and reflect on what we are doing, regardless of what contracts or policies they are. Because when we say that it's as good as it can be and it can never change, that's when we start making a rock for ourselves that we will be crucified on, because we'll go back to defending the indefensible. We must never do that. So even within this report, in the in the street tree strategy that we currently have, that must be constantly reviewed, because that is symptomatic, and that came out of this process. That came out of the learning that came from up on the balconies and others. We can never be so complacent as to think we've ever got it right. We must always look to be better and assume that we can always be better. And I welcome the conciliatory talks and the voices from many within this chamber. We will need to make peace. This is not going to be an easy process. And as you've rightly said, Lord Mayor, we are not saying this is the end. This is just the beginning of a long process where we will ultimately be better as we go along that. But this process itself will never finish, as none of our policies are ever finished. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Next off is Richard Shaw.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Reconciliation requires the restoration of truth, trust and transparency. It requires those who are wrong to apologise and to be seen to be sorry too. It requires a commitment and a demonstration of that commitment to cultural change. But many of those who are in leadership or cabinet positions during the dispute are not here today, and frankly, there's been little demonstration of change so far. For example, Labour deselected their initial candidate for Broomhill and Sharrow Vale, apparently due to comments they made calling for greater reform within the council. The supposedly independent chair of the Independent Tree panel endorsed a Labour candidate at the last election. Labour councillors, apart from Councillor Jones so far, have sat sheepishly in silence, most not even politely clapping members of the public who have come here to ask questions. I want to hear from Labour councillors about how they will affect change within their group and within this council. But Lord Mayor, as they've been nationalised, maybe we should wait to hear from Keir Starmer instead. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
I will make sure that Sir Keir comes to the next meeting instead of Sir Mark, shall I? Right, Brian, next.
Indeed. How are Labour councillors going to implement the report? How are they going to respond to this? So Mark Lowcock referred to the depth and gravity of the report. That's depth and gravity. So how far does it go? I find there is some acceptance from some people. However, how deep and wide is this? Is this a glossed over surface concern? Is it being confined to a few and not the many in the Labour group? How far does Sheffield Labour Party, its councillors, officials and members get the report? I'd love to know. I'm concerned that the Sir Mark Lowcock report is referred to as the tree report. It is not just a tree report, it's a report into council procedures. It's culture of decision-making, poor decision-making, that was limited to a few at the top table. The tree campaign led me personally to support that campaign against the Heritage of the Western Road memorial trees and to campaign in support of It's Our City. A fabulous campaign. Congratulations. I'm pleased to say that this has now happened. We have a committee system. And I have now been elected and a part of this. So I've got to be good. We need to protect and preserve that committee system. It's our democratic avenue. Rather than backsliding to a strong leader model, I heard a number of people during the election campaign refer to the strong leader model and against the committee system. I don't think they know what they're talking about. That model was damaged and damaging. We need to embed the committee system into our council culture and our thinking. It's a place where all councillors contribute and are involved and can represent the people properly and appropriately in doing that. Thank you.
It was good to hear from one of my constituents. Thank you, Brian. Our next speaker is Councillor Craig Gamble-Pugh.
Thank you. Thank you, Lord Mayor. Thank you, everybody, for participating today, and thank you for the members of the public who are in attendance. I just wanted to say a couple of words from a personal perspective about my experience of this whole tree scandal. I was first elected in 2016, served until 2018, where I lost my seat in Crooks, predominantly on the back of the moves to chop down the World War I memorial trees there, which was clearly ridiculous and a product of the privatisation and outsourcing of public services, which Bernard has alluded to. So I felt as if I spent a huge amount of my time as a councillor on my first term of office supporting residents who were expressing their concerns. I wanted to particularly speak about one of the campaigners in Crooks at that time called Mary, who's no longer with us. She passed away sadly and didn't live to see the resolution that we've subsequently managed to put in place. But Mary bumped into me outside the town hall one day when there was a tree rally that was scheduled, and she got the dates mixed up. And I just happened to be kind of passing, and she grabbed me and said, when's this rally? And I said, oh, it was yesterday, actually. Sorry. And so we established that she was one of my constituents, and so I took her for a coffee, and she was just very earnestly saying to me, why is this happening? What's going wrong? And I didn't know, and I didn't have an answer. And in our group at the time, I think it's honest to say that we didn't have the answers. And I think it's hugely important that we've now got the answers laid bare in Sir Mark Lowcock's report. It gives us the opportunity to have the truth set out in all its shocking awfulness, so that we can now begin to move on and reconcile. And I support the idea of having some sort of commemoration of the protest that we've experienced in the city, because at the heart of the Western Road trees memorial, there is a plaque that's in the wall, and the quote that I used to quote time and time again from 2016 to 2018 was from the event where those trees were planted by the school kids of the local primary school. There was a councillor at the time, one of our predecessors, who was quoted in the local paper as saying that he had impressed upon those present the necessity of seeing that the trees are kept free from harm. And we didn't, before a very long and painful dispute, manage to impress upon ourselves and one another the importance of keeping these trees free from harm. There was another quote from that event from the local vicar, Reverend Pearson, who said that now it remains for the boys and girls of today, by which, by extension, I think we can mean the councillors of today, to learn from these lessons of the losses that have been sustained and to make Sheffield a place better worth living in. That is our challenge now. And I thank all of the people who were involved in that campaign in Crooks and Crossball and across the city. And let's now try to move forward.
Thank you, Councillor. Our next speaker is Sophie. Sorry, not you, Sophie.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. The Lowcock report emphasises that a large-scale cultural change is needed, and yet here we are today We were set to have discussions between ourselves, behind closed doors, not webcast to the public, and under Chatham House rules, and the irony of that is not lost on me. But discussions in breakout rooms or not, the street trees dispute is a stain on our local history, and as an elected member of this chamber, if I was to be found to have misled the courts, misled the public, and bullied and misled the public, and misled the council, I would do the decent thing and have the integrity to resign from public office. And yet it seems... and yet it seems like the former council leader, Labour councillor Terry Fox, had to be dragged kicking and screaming to do so. But simply a change of face for Labour as the largest party in this chamber, but hand-selected by unelected bureaucrats in London Labour HQ since their takeover, that doesn't change the fact that we still have people in this chamber today who were directly involved. And, for example, signed public statements saying that the protests had much to do with protecting people's house prices in leafy suburbs. Absolutely disgraceful, I agree. Which is a clear attempt to undermine members of the public, discredit them by virtue of where they live, and paint them as selfish. Now, whilst these members for Darnall have had years to correct the record, and I'm not sure how far an apology would wash today, those who signed up to that and supported it across the board should now play a role in rebuilding trust in our city. And if we want to restore that trust and integrity to local politics, as our Chief Executive Kate Joseph said earlier today, that we can't just pay lip service, that we have to live those values. And exonerating the protesters that were convicted would be a bloody good start. Thank you.
Thank you, Sophie. Next, I've got Alexi.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Firstly, I want to thank all the campaigners and members of the public that have come here today. I know that it can't have been easy to engage with this. I know the pain that a lot of people have been through. I also want to thank you, Lord Mayor, for the way that you've chaired this very difficult meeting. It has been very challenging. I also did want to ask some questions of the Cabinet members that are not here today. Unfortunately, I wanted to ask, some of them are, when they were first aware of the target to fell the 17,500 trees, why did they withhold that information from the people of Sheffield for so long when they had the opportunity to tell the truth? I wanted to ask why the leaders of the Sheffield Labour group at that time thought it was appropriate to use anti-trade union law against the whole population of Sheffield. But unfortunately, they're not here today, so I can't. I also wanted them to reflect on all those who were variously physically assaulted, intimidated, filmed, photographed, and followed to their homes, including some of my friends. And I also wanted to reflect on honesty in politics and really ask everyone in this chamber to try and commit to honesty in politics, even at election time, and to commit to the committee system which campaigners worked so hard to secure on the back of the tree dead. Thank you very much.
And I'm hoping we're all going to commit to a dialogue with each other. Right. My next speaker is Councillor Fran Belbin.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you to the people who have come in the public gallery today. I want to give you a formal apology on behalf of the Labour group for the way that we as a group behaved during this. It's not enough just to have an apology from the council services, and so I am offering that to you today. People hear me okay? It was wrong. We made lots of mistakes. I hope that people have seen the statement we did put out earlier this week that did talk about the mistakes we've made and the way that we intend to make up for those.
I'm really sorry, Councillor Belbin. You will have to hold your microphone because not everybody can hear you, and I think what you're saying is important.
We know that we have to continue working with you, that we have to genuinely have a different approach to how we work in this city. And I think the statement we put out this week genuinely committed us to that. I want to thank you, Lord Mayor, for what I know was also a deeply felt attempt to start that dialogue today in terms of having those discussions around a round table. I know that was very much about trying to begin a real dialogue around how we go forwards from now. I appreciate we've lost your trust, I understand that, and I appreciate that it takes more than a meeting and apology to try and win that back. But we do have to have a dialogue at some point, and we do have to start talking at some point, not just because it's important to get over the mistakes of the past, but we need your voices in understanding whether we are accountable in the future. We need to hear the voices of our public, not just in the gallery today, but the wider public as well, around, are we actually being accountable to you? Are we being transparent? How will we know that we are getting this right? And we cannot do that without having that proper discussion with yourselves. I do promise you, we will be electing a new leadership next week for the Labour group, and we will be working across the chamber collaboratively, but also with our public to make sure that we do things better in the future.
Is this a point of clarification? Because this is a councillors' debate.
But reference was made to a statement that I don't think anyone up here is aware of. So I don't know how you've circulated that, but I don't think anyone up here has seen or heard of it until just now.
Yes, it was via the press.
It needs...
Okay, thank you. We will sort that. Thank you for raising that issue. Right. Right, it says that I have a right of reply as the mover of the motion. So I am formally moving my right of reply. I'm now going to move to the vote on amendment number 1 as moved by Councillor Paul Turpin, which will be conducted using the electronic voting system unless we have unanimous support for the amendment. Is amendment number 1 agreed? I will take silence as the affirmation of the meeting.
Lord Mayor, in voting for, we will be voting against clause, and I've disappeared from my screen. It's the one about, clause 7. We're going to be voting against clause 7 in voting for.
Okay, in which case we will go to an electronic vote.
For the benefit of people in the gallery, that's the one that blames it on the cabinet system. I think that we think it's a cultural problem that could exist under any system.
Oh, hang on. Let's have one voice, and it's mine. So, sorry, Councillor Mazza Iqbal.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I've been sharing a mic because we haven't sat at the top of the table. We've only got one mic, so
You're 16 audio. I recognise you.
It's just that how we're going to vote. If it's an electronic vote, we'll all need a separate mic, I think.
Okay. So can we just make sure in that case, sorry, what Councillor Iqbal said was that he doesn't appear to have a vote at the moment. Can I make sure that everybody is sitting in a place where they are able to vote and have their own microphone?
So we need to move. Can we get them other ones? You don't need to.
He can. Will somebody help him?
Yeah, but you can't vote. I can if I logged on.
Councillor Dale, are you trying to attract my attention? No. Okay. In which case, can we please move to a vote on amendment? Nope, hang on, it's Councillor Sorry. Okay, but if you can, you can. Okay, troops. I'm now going to move to a vote on amendment number 1, which will be conducted using the electronic voting system. As you know, you have to... Is it all set up? Sorry.
Instructions on the desks.
Right. There are instructions on the desks for new members and for those of us like me who have forgotten and are hoping somebody will nudge them. Who's calling me now? Sorry. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Thank you, Shop Steward. Right. Joe, which part are you voting against? Sorry, not you, your group.
We're voting against clause 7. In voting for the amendment, we're voting against clause 7, the one that begins noting the streets ahead contract.
Okay. Sophie.
Thank you. In voting for, I'm abstaining on 7.
Thank you. You've got that? Any advance on that? Sorry? There will be on the second one. Yeah, no. Right. Are we, sorry, ready to go? It's being a bit slow. It hasn't been used for a while. Right, here we go. So,
Vote against it.
touch the blue person. You press the little person and then press for the vote of your choice. Have all new members got somebody kind to help them? Close, isn't it?
2 abstentions.
Hopefully change their mind.
Or 2 people just not voted.
Oh, yes, that's right.
We've got a camera.
Oh.
So, how many of them are there?
Top desk. We're all here, 29 of us.
29? Are you all here?
Yeah.
29. Okay, so it's carried and that against parts is lost. Yeah. Right, has everybody voted? How many people? Sorry? Yeah. Sorry, yes, thank you. Okay, one person hasn't voted. He gets 7. Didn't you know that? No, we're not in Northern Ireland. Right. I'm going to give it another 5 seconds, and if somebody hasn't voted, they haven't voted.
Got a voting now.
Hurrah. Thank you. In which case, the amendment is passed 71-0, but also because it's such a large margin, it means that the entire motion, the entire amendment is passed and the taking in parts falls. Thank you. I'm now going to move to the vote on Amendment 2, which is moved by Councillor Shafak Mohammed, and that will be conducted using the electronic voting system unless we have unanimous support for the amendment.
Lord Mayor, in supporting this amendment, we will be voting against part 7.
Okay, so we are going to have to vote again. Whoops, Sophie? Same. How many Labour members are there? No, here. No. How many? Okay, it appears that no, not everybody's voted, have they? Oh.
Yes, no.
Okay. And as 71 people have voted for that amendment, the proposal for the taking in parts falls as well, so that is passed. Okay, thank you everybody. So we now have a substantive motion. Can I take it that everybody is agreeing with that? I'll take silence as affirmation. Councillor Belbin?
Lord Mayor, in supporting the motion, we'll continue to be voting against the point 7 in the Lib Dem amendment.
Can we now vote on the substantive motion, please? Oh, Sophie? Okay, right. Has everybody voted? They have, haven't they? Yeah. Okay, thank you. The substantive motion is passed in its entirety. Thank you, members. Right, so now I am pretty confident that all of you will want to go to the breakout rooms to have a discussion about how we are going to take this forward and how we are going to have an actual dialogue rather than having people just making varied points. So the offer is still there for members, all members, to come to actually go through the recommendations from the Lowcock report and have a proper discussion about it. Thank you all.
And I'd like to just read out the names of 4 people who gave the last days of their lives to help and protect our trees and are no longer with us. Some were not here to know that we actually had a victory on saving the trees.
And those 4 people are Mary Sargent, Roy Millington, Alan Robshaw and John Errington. And I would just like us to remember them and to remember their contribution. Thank you.
Well, can I just confirm that those names have been taken for the minutes? Thank you. Okay. You're back, sorry. Right, in that case, sorry? Yes, I'm now going to ask Pete, who has sat there so patiently, to explain what the next part of the meeting is for all of us who want to be there to have dialogue and discussion about how we are going to implement the decisions, the proposals and recommendations of the Lowcock report. Thank you, everybody.
Can you hear me? Brilliant.
Go ahead, Pete.
Thank you. I just want to congratulate everybody for a process that was difficult to face into today. Words like respectful, debate, reconciliation, recovery, moving forward, progress over perfection really strikes me. And everyone taking collective responsibility. The process that we designed in advance of today clearly didn't unfold the way that anyone thought it would. And that's the nature of collaboration. It's the nature of coming together. What I've learned through my work in facilitating literally hundreds of thousands of people over the years is that true discussion, collaboration and partnership is the sort of thing, that the sort of stuff that Sir Mark talks about is actually really hard. It's confronting, it's ugly at times. But you know what, if you go into it with the best of intentions, an open mind, an open heart and true kindness, really utterly brilliant things can come out of it. And if anything I've seen in this room today, I've seen a lot of people committed to the practice of collaboration. Some feel like others are more so and others less so, but you know what? I think there's nothing but commitment here. And I've got this kind of like process that we designed before. It's a little different now, but I'd really love to invite you to a room down the corridor where we'll get to look at some of the recommendations that have been put on the table by Sir Mark and ask ourselves 3 things. 1, what do these recommendations really mean to us? 2, what might the future look like if we actually get these things right? If we actually step up and take these things on, what will good look like in the next 12, 24 months? And lastly, you know, what steps might you want to take to show that we're on the path to success? And some of you are going to feel really comfortable walking into a room like that with open hearts, open minds, wanting that conversation. And some of you are just not going to feel ready for it, not going to feel like you've got the trust there yet. What I encourage you to do is be brave. I encourage you to come and join in. No pressure, no judgment. Just come in and let's just enjoy a bit of time together where we can actually look forward and say, how are we going to come together to respond to these recommendations? And I really, you know, it's the end of the day. We might not want to do it. Some of us are really tired. I'm energised by today. And Sinead, sorry, forgive me, Lord Mayor, your last session, what a session. You put something out here to do something differently, and congratulations to you and all your service to everybody. So in recognition of the fact that rooms as beautiful and historic as this place and the cultural symbols that it's steeped in are not always an easy place to have true conversation and deliberation, I really would love to invite you all to step into the room, down the corridor. I'll be asking you to create a safe space for each other, invite you to bring open minds, open hearts for a great conversation. I will be also asking to help that space work as best as it can. I'd really, really like everyone to embrace the Chatham House rule. And what I'm saying by this is that the session can be reported, but individuals will not be named in quotes, so we can have that extra level of safety where we can sit there and just say, hey, right now, here's my opinion on this. And it's not fully formed. It's the beginning of a conversation. It will mean that we can't film or record that at the moment. And some of you might not feel happy about that. Shoot me, I'm the messenger. I really feel that there's an opportunity to get the process started. It's your city and it's your opportunity here to say how we're really going to feed the committee structure going forward and the actions going forward. And we've got a few minutes, an hour, maybe more if you want it, to do that now. And if you don't want to join, no problem too. So, Lord Mayor, may I pass back to you to formally bring this to a close and formally invite everyone to the reception rooms. We have guides to take people down as well. Thank you.
The mic's working now. Oh, it is, if I hold it. Right. I would like people to accept that invitation. I would also remind everybody that we're back here this time next week when the lovely Colin gets to be our new Lord Mayor, and I'd like to thank him for his support this year, and also to the Lady Mayoress who has been here for a lot of the meeting, just watching what we've been doing. So with that, I'll bring the meeting formally to a close.